Can you imagine being told your passion was a waste of time, that you'd fail anyway, only to discover years later that your own family was actively sabotaging your undeniable success? That's exactly what happened to me, and the moment they found out the truth was more explosive than anything I could have ever dreamed. I still remember my mom. Oh, she'd tell her entire bridge club that I was just wasting my potential on computer games. And at my brother's engagement dinner, while they all laughed and mocked my freak obsession, his fiancée just stared at me. Her eyes widened, then a slow, knowing smile spread across her face. "Pale," she whispered, leaning in, "you're the $275 million CEO we just acquired." The air left my lungs. It took me right back to that cold afternoon years ago. I walked into my dad's home office and just stopped. There it was. My first-place AI programming trophy from high school, the golden figure, the physical embodiment of months of work he'd dismissed as computer nonsense. It was serving as a paperweight on his desk, squashed beneath stacks of medical journals. Just some computer things Sarah did, he'd still tell visitors, his voice dripping with casual dismissal. But in my purse, that very night, was a signed contract. A contract that made me $300 million richer than the day I'd won that computer thing. Tonight, at Michael's engagement dinner, they were about to learn exactly what that paperweight was truly worth. Oh, the sweet, twisted justice. The rage that had been simmering in my chest for 6 long, agonizing years suddenly crystallized. It was pure. It was focused. Every condescending comment, every dismissive gesture, every single moment that made me feel worthless, it all led to this. Tonight, the underachieving daughter would become the ghost genius who'd revolutionized an entire industry. I carefully lifted the trophy. Its familiar weight felt solid in my hands. The inscription still gleamed. First place, Illinois State AI Programming Competition. Sarah Johnson. The same Sarah Johnson whose signature now graced a $300 million acquisition agreement. How many times had I imagined this very moment? How many sleepless nights had I spent dreaming of the day they'd finally understand what they had tried so hard to destroy? The trophy felt warm, as if it had been waiting all these years for its vindication. I gently set it on the corner of Dad's desk, no longer hidden, but standing proud, visible. Let him explain that asterisk to his next visitor. My hand trembled as I reached for the pen. $300 million. The number stayed back at me from the acquisition agreement, spread across the gleaming mahogany conference table. Around me, 12 executives in tailored suits waited in respectful, almost reverent silence. They watched as I prepared to sign away 6 years of my life's work to Urban Dynamics Incorporated, the largest real estate development firm in North America. "Take your time, Ms. Johnson," David Chen, Urban Dynamics CEO, said. His voice carried the measured patience of a man about to write a check with 9 zeros. I glanced up at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the 40th floor boardroom. Chicago stretched out below, a vast, glittering expanse of smart buildings, many of them managed by the very AI platform I was about to sell. Somewhere in that urban sprawl, my parents were probably having lunch, completely unaware that their struggling daughter was about to become one of the youngest self-made female entrepreneurs in AI history. The irony wasn't lost on me. In 3 short hours, I'd be sitting at Michael's engagement dinner, listening to my mother suggest I apply for entry-level positions, all while I secretly carry the weight of a 9-figure exit in my pocket. "Ms. Johnson." Amanda Parker, Urban Dynamics VP of Corporate Development, leaned forward slightly. Her perfectly manicured fingers drummed once against her leather portfolio. "Any final questions before we proceed?" I almost laughed out loud. Amanda had no idea that in exactly 3 hours and 27 minutes, she'd be shaking hands with my brother across a white tablecloth, introducing herself as his fiancée. She had no idea that the family dinner she'd mentioned postponing for this signing was the exact same dinner where I'd planned to sit quietly in the corner, playing the role of the underachieving younger sister. Life truly has a twisted sense of humor. The weight of the pen in my hand felt symbolic. With this signature, I wasn't just selling a company. I was buying my freedom. Freedom from hiding. Freedom from pretending. freedom from making myself small to make others comfortable. I pressed the pen to paper and signed my name with steady strokes. Sarah Elizabeth Johnson, CEO and co-founder, TechVision AI. The room erupted in polite applause. Handshakes and congratulations followed. But my mind was already racing ahead to the conversation I'd dreaded and anticipated for years. Tonight, my two worlds would collide in the most spectacular way imaginable. As I shook David Chen's hand, sealing the deal that would transform TechVision AI into Urban Dynamics' crown jewel, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. 6 years of building in secret. 6 years of enduring their pity and condescension. 6 years of waiting for this exact moment. Tonight, everything would change. Sarah, computers are a hobby, not a career. Those words echoed in my head as I set the signed contract aside. My mind drifted back to where it all began. Highland Park, Illinois, 1998. I was 8 years old, sitting cross-legged on our pristine hardwood floor, completely absorbed in the family's new gateway computer. My brother Michael practiced violin in the next room, oblivious. Our house wasn't just a home. It was a monument to achievement. Dr. Robert Johnson's framed medical degrees lined the hallway. Mom's law school diplomas and Bar Association awards dominated her home office. Michael's academic trophies filled an entire bookshelf. And there I was, teaching myself to code basic HTML, while they discussed my concerning lack of focus during hushed kitchen conversations. They weren't cruel parents, not really. They loved me, but they loved me through the lens of their own hard-won wisdom, which meant steering me away from anything that looked risky or unconventional. Technology, to Dad, was unproven and unreliable. To Mom, who'd clawed her way to the top of a male-dominated law firm in the 1980s, the safest path was always the most conservative one. Dad's obsession with traditional success came from a place of genuine trauma. He'd lost a patient early in his career due to a communication error, a preventable tragedy that shaped his belief that only established, regulated professions could be trusted. Technology represented chaos to him, variables he couldn't control. Mom's fierce commitment to conventional achievement was born from different battles. Victoria Johnson had fought tooth and nail for every promotion, every case, every ounce of respect in a profession that questioned whether women belonged in courtrooms at all. She'd learned that in a world that doubted women's capabilities, the safest path was the most traditional one. The first crack in our relationship appeared when I was 15. I'd spent 3 weeks learning CSS to create an interactive timeline for my history class, staying up until 2 a.m., perfecting the animations and user interface. The project earned me an A+ and praise from my teacher, who called it the most innovative presentation she'd seen in 20 years. Sarah built a website for her school project. I announced proudly at dinner, showing them my laptop screen, where the timeline sparkled with smooth transitions and embedded multimedia. Stop wasting time on those silly computer games and focus on something that actually matters, Mom replied, barely glancing at my work. Real professionals don't play with computers all day. Dad nodded, already turning to ask Michael about his advanced chemistry project. The message was clear. Real achievement happened in operating rooms and courtrooms, not at computer screens. But the real devastation was still coming. Things escalated exponentially in high school when I developed an AI program that streamlined our school's student scheduling system, cutting administrative time in half and eliminating conflicts that had plagued them for years. The principal called it remarkable innovation. My parents called it embarrassing computer nonsense. The breaking point came during my junior year. I'd spent months preparing for the Illinois State AI programming competition, developing a machine learning system that local businesses were actually asking to license. This wasn't just a hobby anymore. It was the foundation of what would eventually become TechVision AI. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. to code before school, spend every lunch break in the computer lab, and stay after classes until the janitor locked up. My program could analyze purchasing patterns and predict inventory needs with 94% accuracy, revolutionary for small businesses in 2001. The competition finals fell on the same Saturday as Michael's acceptance celebration for Northwestern's pre-med program. This is where their true nature revealed itself. My parents deliberately scheduled Michael's party on the same day as my AI competition finals. They'd known about my competition for months, had it marked on the family calendar, had watched me prepare obsessively. You knew this was important to me, I said, when I discovered the conflict. You've seen me working on this for 6 months. When I protested, Mom guilt-tripped me with surgical precision. You're being selfish, Sarah. Michael has worked his entire life for this. Your little computer hobby can wait. Computer hobby. My potential breakthrough in machine learning was a hobby that could wait. The word choice was deliberate. They'd reduced months of sophisticated programming, complex algorithm development, and genuine innovation to a trivial, disposable, unworthy pastime. I competed alone. I was the only participant without family in the audience. And I won first place. The judges, all professional software engineers from major tech companies, told me I had natural talent and vision that universities would fight over. They handed me business cards. They talked about internships and mentorship opportunities that could change my life. I came home clutching my trophy, my heart pounding with excitement, ready to share my victory with the people who mattered most to me. I found our house full of relatives celebrating Michael's acceptance. Aunts and uncles who'd driven hours to congratulate my brother. A catered dinner with his favorite foods. A champagne toast to his brilliant future in medicine. My first-place finish warranted a distracted good job from Dad before he returned to toasting my brother. That's when I watched him take my trophy, the physical embodiment of months of work, of my potential future, of my passion, and place it on his desk as a paperweight. "What's this, Dr. Stevens?" Dad's colleague had asked, picking up the trophy later that evening. "Just some computer things Sarah did in high school," Dad replied dismissively. "She's got to focus on real subjects now." Real subjects? As if artificial intelligence wasn't real. As if the technology that would eventually manage half of downtown Chicago was just an asterisk thing star. The dismissal was so complete, so casual, it took my breath away. 6 months of work reduced to some computer thing. My victory. My potential, my entire identity dismissed in a single sentence. That night, I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, making a decision that would define the next 15 years of my life. I would succeed on my own terms, without their validation. I would build something so undeniable that they'd have no choice but to see me clearly. I just had no idea how long that would take, or how much worse their betrayal would become. College applications became a battleground. My parents pushed for Ivy League schools with strong pre-law programs. I applied to state universities with excellent computer science departments. When my acceptance to Northwestern's McCormick School of Engineering arrived with a full merit scholarship, I was ecstatic. Finally, validation from the outside world. Finally, proof that my passion had value. Then I realized my parents had never mentioned receiving it. 3 weeks later, I found the letter hidden in Dad's desk drawer, the same drawer where my trophy now lived as a paperweight, along with my acceptances to MIT and Stanford, all with substantial scholarships, all deliberately concealed from me. The MIT letter was particularly painful. They'd offered me a place in their prestigious artificial intelligence program, with a full ride and research opportunities that would have fast-tracked my career by years. We thought it was best, Mom explained when I confronted them, her voice eerily calm. You were getting confused about your priorities. Sometimes parents have to protect their children from making life-ruining decisions. Life-ruining decisions. They'd literally stolen my future, intercepted my mail, and hidden my opportunities. And they called pursuing my passion a life-ruining decision. But they weren't finished destroying my prospects. When I refused to change my major from computer science to pre-law, they cut off all financial support. Completely. While Michael received unlimited funding for medical school, they co-signed a $200,000 loan for his medical equipment and downtown apartment. The same week they told me I was on my own. Maybe this will help you come to your senses, Dad said, when I begged for help with tuition. We're not enabling your technology addiction anymore. Technology addiction? They pathologized my passion, turned my talent into a disease that needed curing. The double standard was breathtaking and deliberate. Michael's medical pursuits deserved unlimited support. My AI research was an addiction requiring intervention. But Mom made it exponentially worse by launching a full-scale reputation destruction campaign. She spread rumors in their social circle that I was wasting my life on computer games and desperately needed an intervention. She even organized a family meeting to discuss my technology addiction. The meeting was held on a Sunday afternoon in our formal living room, the same room where they'd celebrated Michael's acceptances and achievements. Aunts, uncles, and grandparents gathered in a circle, while I sat in the center like a defendant on trial. "We're worried about Sarah," Mom told the assembled family members, her voice dripping with concern. "She's obsessed with unrealistic computer fantasies. We think she might need professional help. It's not normal for a young woman to spend so much time isolated with machines." Aunt Linda chimed in. "She should be socializing, dating, thinking about her future family." Professional help? For wanting to pursue computer science? For having the audacity to believe that artificial intelligence might be important? They weren't just cutting off financial support. They were systematically destroying my reputation, my family relationships, and my sense of self-worth. All because my success didn't look like theirs. The isolation was crushing, but it was also liberating. I'd learned to guard my professional life from people who never valued it, even as that life grew increasingly remarkable. I met Emma Rodriguez in my advanced algorithms class at community college. While other students struggled with the final project, Emma and I finished ours in half the assigned time, then added features the professor hadn't requested. "You two think differently than most programmers," Professor Martinez told us after class. "You see the human element in technical problems. That's rare." Emma was brilliant, driven, and like me, came from a family that didn't quite understand her path. But her parents' skepticism was rooted in concern, not contempt. They worried about her financial stability, not her mental health. They questioned her choices, not her sanity. "The real estate industry is completely broken," Emma said one night, her laptop open to an article about inefficient building management systems. "My dad manages commercial properties in Phoenix. Half his day is wasted on stuff that should be automated." She showed me reports of security breaches caused by outdated access systems, energy waste from buildings that couldn't adapt to occupancy patterns, maintenance delays that cost millions and lost productivity. The industry was ripe for disruption. What if we could change that? I asked, and something clicked. Over the next week, we sketched ideas on napkins and whiteboards. We envisioned an AI platform that would revolutionize how buildings managed everything from access control to space utilization. By semester's end, we had the skeleton of what would eventually become TechVision AI. But my parents' sabotage was far from over. Summer break meant returning to Highland Park, where Dad was actively undermining my professional reputation in their shared social circles. He told his medical colleagues that my tech studies were just a hobby and I was playing around with computers until she finds a real career. I overheard him at a backyard barbecue, standing by the grill with Dr. Stevens and two other physicians from his practice. "Your daughter's computer thing is cute," Dr. Stevens said, gesturing toward me with his beer. "But when is she going to get serious about her future?" "Soon, I hope," Dad replied, flipping burgers with more force than necessary. "We're working on getting her some interviews for real positions. Maybe something in administration at the hospital. Or, Victoria knows some people in legal support. Real positions." While I was developing AI algorithms that would eventually manage half of downtown Chicago, my father was telling his colleagues I needed help finding real work. The cognitive dissonance was suffocating, but it also fueled my determination. Emma and I moved to Chicago after graduation, subletting a cramped studio apartment in Wicker Park. We lived on ramen and coffee, coding until our eyes burned, taking freelance web development gigs to pay rent. Our first office was a corner table at a 24-hour diner on Division Street. We incorporated in Delaware, filed our patents, and started pitching to VCs along the entrepreneurial circuit. The early rejections were brutal. "AI is too theoretical," they said. "Building management isn't sexy. Two college kids can't disrupt legacy real estate." But we persisted. TechVision AI's core innovation was elegantly simple, an AI platform that used machine learning to predict building usage patterns, optimize energy consumption, and create seamless user experiences through biometric authentication. Employees could enter buildings, book conference rooms, order food, and access services with a simple fingerprint or facial scan. Building managers could track utilization patterns, predict maintenance needs, and enhance security through real-time AI analytics. What made it revolutionary wasn't the individual components. Other companies had pieces of the puzzle. It was the integration. We'd created a comprehensive ecosystem that turned legacy buildings into responsive, intelligent environments. The technical challenges were immense. We had to develop machine learning algorithms that could process massive data streams in real time, create biometric systems that were both secure and user-friendly, and integrate with dozens of different building management platforms. I spent months learning facial recognition technology, studying computer vision libraries, and optimizing neural networks for real-time processing. Emma focused on the user experience, creating interfaces so intuitive that even the most tech-phobic building managers could navigate them effortlessly. Our breakthrough came when we solved the latency problem. Other systems took 3 to 5 seconds to process biometric data. We got it down to 0.3 seconds. That difference turned clunky inconvenience into seamless magic. Our first breakthrough came through Professor Martinez, who connected us with Janet Chen, a frustrated property manager at a downtown office complex. We implemented a pilot program in her building over a weekend. By Monday morning, her maintenance requests had dropped by 60%. Her security team could track every access point in real time, and tenants were raving about the seamless experience. "How did you do this?" Janet asked, staring at her dashboard, which showed real-time occupancy data, energy usage optimization, and predictive maintenance alerts. "I've been trying to get systems like this for years." That first contract for $50,000 felt like winning the lottery. But it was just the beginning. The early years were relentless, 18-hour days, constant pivots, the emotional rollercoaster of startup life. We moved into a tiny shared workspace in River North, then gradually expanded as we hired our first employees. Tyler Washington, a brilliant back-end developer who could optimize our AI algorithms for massive scale. Marcus Chen, a UX designer who made our interfaces feel like magic. Lisa Rodriguez, a sales manager who could convince skeptical building owners to trust new technology. Each hire felt like validation. These weren't people doing us favors. They were talented professionals who believed in our vision enough to bet their careers on it. Meanwhile, my family relationships became increasingly superficial. Sunday phone calls were exercises in creative vagueness. "How's work going?" Mom would ask. "Good. Busy. Learning a lot." "Are you making decent money?" "Enough to get by." These weren't technically lies, but they weren't the full truth either. By my 27th birthday, TechVision AI was generating $2 million in annual revenue, managing buildings that house 30,000 workers daily. I was paying myself a modest salary to keep reinvesting in the company, so getting by was accurate, even as my equity stake grew increasingly valuable. The cognitive dissonance was exhausting. In professional settings, I was a rising star whom industry publications were beginning to notice. At family gatherings, I was the daughter who'd never found her footing. Then came the cruelest moment yet. "Sweetheart, your father's golf partner mentioned that his company might be hiring for their IT help desk," Mom said during one of our calls. "Should I put in a good word for you?" I was sitting in my corner office, looking out over Lake Michigan. Signed contracts worth millions of dollars sat on my desk. My AI platform was managing buildings across 12 major cities, and my mother was offering to help me get a help desk job. "That's very thoughtful, Mom, but I'm really happy with my current position." "Of course, but you can't work in support roles forever. You need security, benefits, a real career path." A real career path. I was building the career path for an entire industry. But to her, it wasn't real because she couldn't see it. Tech publications started paying attention to TechVision AI. I was careful to keep a low profile, doing interviews but requesting photos show only the back of my head or silhouettes. In articles, I was Sarah J., co-founder, or simply TechVision's reclusive CEO. The mystery enhanced our reputation, the brilliant but camera-shy woman revolutionizing prop tech. But it also meant that even our most significant business partners knew me only as a voice on conference calls. Don't you want more recognition? Emma asked after I declined another profile opportunity. You've earned it. I do want recognition, I admitted. Just not yet. And not from strangers. What I couldn't articulate, even to Emma, was my complicated relationship with validation. I wanted my family to see me, truly *C** me. But I wasn't sure I could handle them taking credit for my success or finding ways to minimize it once it became undeniable. The breakthrough moment came in early 2021 when the pandemic hit. Suddenly, every property owner needed real-time occupancy data, contactless access systems, and flexible space management. TechVision AI wasn't just useful, it was essential. Our revenue tripled in 6 months. We hired aggressively, moving into a beautiful office space in the Loop with views of Lake Michigan. The Series B funding round closed at a $45 million valuation. I could afford a gorgeous apartment in Lincoln Park, but I kept my address vague when family asked. A place near downtown, with roommates, I'd say. Technically true, since Emma lived 2 floors down. But my parents delivered their final, most devastating betrayal yet. I came home from a successful board meeting to find a voicemail from Mom. Sarah, honey, I have wonderful news. Your father and I have been talking to some people about getting you set up with better opportunities. We scheduled some interviews for you next week with real companies. It's time to get serious about your future. They'd gone behind my back to headhunters, presenting me as unemployed and looking for real work. They'd scheduled interviews without my knowledge, planning to present it as saving me from myself. But the most twisted part was yet to come. I found out through Michael that they were planning to use my tech connections to help his medical practice get better computer systems. They wanted to leverage my industry relationships for ***'s benefit, completely unaware that I was the tech industry leader they'd been dismissing for years. Mom mentioned you might know some computer people who could help me set up my practice's electronic systems, Michael said during one of our rare conversations. She said you've been working in IT support, so you might have connections. IT support. After building what would become a $300 million AI platform, they still thought I was in IT support. The irony was so complete, it was almost beautiful. Then came the call that would change everything. Urban Dynamics Incorporated reached out through intermediaries in March 2022. They weren't just interested in TechVision AI. They were interested in revolutionizing the entire approach to property management and urban development. They're talking about integration, not just acquisition, Emma said after our preliminary meeting with their representatives. They want to build their next-generation platform around our technology. The numbers being discussed were staggering. Initial conversations suggested a valuation in the $250 to $300 million range. It wasn't just life-changing money. It was family-silencing money. The kind of success that would be impossible to minimize or explain away. The due diligence process began in earnest. Teams of lawyers and accountants crawled through every aspect of our business. Urban Dynamics leadership team toured our offices, interviewed our employees, and stress-tested our technology platform. Through it all, I maintained my low profile. When Urban Dynamics requested executive interviews, I participated via video call with my camera off. Emma became the public face of TechVision AI, while I remained the phantom architect. They're going to want to meet you in person eventually, Emma warned. You can't stay anonymous through a $300 million acquisition. She was right, but I wasn't ready. Not yet. The final offer arrived on a Tuesday morning in June, $300 million, with earnouts that could push the total value to $350 million over 3 years. There's something else, Emma said carefully, after we'd reviewed the terms. Amanda Parker, the VP of Corporate Development, mentioned that she's engaged to a doctor at Northwestern Memorial. Someone named Michael Johnson. My blood went cold. Michael Johnson. Yeah, Emma continued. She seemed excited about some family dinner next week. Small world, right? Small world indeed. In 7 days, I'd be sitting at my brother's engagement dinner, meeting his fiancée, Amanda Parker. The same Amanda Parker who'd spent 3 months conducting due diligence on my company and negotiating the terms of my $300 million exit. The universe, it seemed, had decided it was time for my two worlds to collide, whether I was ready or not. All that remained was signing the papers and facing the consequences. But first, I had some words to prepare. Words I'd been saving for years. Words that would make every weird little computer girl comment, every "you'll fail anyway" prediction, every dismissive look and condescending smile worth the wait. Tonight, the freak was going to show them exactly what she'd built while they weren't paying attention. The signature room on the 95th floor of the John Hancock building had been Michael's choice for his engagement dinner. I had to admit, it was perfect. Floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of Chicago, the kind of place that demanded celebration, success stories, and impressive achievements. Too bad they had no idea what story they'd be hearing tonight. I arrived exactly on time, wearing a simple but elegant black dress that had cost more than most people's monthly rent, though my family would never know that. Not early enough to help with arrangements, as Mom had suggested. Not late enough to make an entrance. Just punctual and composed, like the businesswoman I'd secretly become. The hostess led me to our private dining room, where my family had already gathered around an elegantly set table for 12. Crystal glasses caught the ambient lighting, casting prismatic patterns across white linens. The Chicago skyline glittered beyond the windows, its lights reflecting off the bay like scattered diamonds. "Sarah." Michael spotted me first, crossing the room with the easy confidence of someone who'd never questioned his place in the world. "I'm so glad you could make it." He embraced me warmly, and for a moment, I felt a pang of something that wasn't quite guilt, more like nostalgia for the relationship one might have had if he'd ever seen me as an equal, rather than a charity case. "Come meet Amanda," he said, guiding me toward the windows where a tall, elegant woman stood silhouetted against the city lights. Even from behind, I recognized her immediately. Amanda Parker, VP of Corporate Development. The woman who'd spent 3 months analyzing every aspect of my business and determining it was worth $300 million. She turned as we approached, and I watched recognition flicker across her features. Confusion at first, then slowly dawning realization. "Amanda, this is my sister Sarah," Michael said with barely concealed pride. "Sarah, meet Amanda Parker, my brilliant fiancée." "It's lovely to finally meet you," Amanda said, her professional composure intact despite the obvious shock in her eyes. "Michael talks about you constantly." I wondered what exactly he said, shaking her perfectly manicured hand. "Congratulations on your engagement," I said sincerely. "I'm happy for you both." Mom appeared at my elbow, her critical gaze scanning my outfit. "Sarah, I see you found something appropriate to wear." "That's nice." The pause spoke volumes. "We've seated you next to Cousin Margaret. You always got along with her." Translation. They positioned me far from the important guests where my lack of impressive achievements wouldn't detract from the evening's celebratory mood. Dinner began with a champagne toast that felt like elaborate theater. Dad spoke first, his voice thick with emotion as he raised his glass. "To my son, Michael, who has made us proud every single day of his life. From his acceptance to Stanford Medical School to his residency at UCSF, he's shown that dedication and hard work in respected fields lead to real success. And to Amanda, a brilliant, accomplished woman worthy of him. We couldn't ask for a better addition to our family." Mom's toast followed, a carefully crafted speech highlighting Michael's achievements, from his first science fair victory to his recent promotion to chief resident. She concluded with, "And now he's found a partner equally dedicated to excellence in traditional, meaningful work." To Michael and Amanda, as glasses clinked around the table, I noticed Amanda watching me with growing intensity, as if trying to reconcile the underachieving sister she'd heard about with something she couldn't quite place. The first course arrived, seared scallops with truffle oil, and conversation flowed around me like water around a stone. I fielded the usual questions about my job situation with practiced deflection. "I work in property technology," I told Cousin Margaret. Data management and system integration. Oh, that sounds technical, she replied with the same tone one might use to discuss a minor illness. Is there room for advancement in that field? Before I could answer, Uncle Jim leaned across the table. Sarah, Michael mentioned you might have a lead on a position at Apple. That would be quite a step up. A step up? I took a careful sip of wine, acutely aware of Amanda's eyes boring into me. In my purse was a signed contract, making me one of the youngest female entrepreneurs to exit an AI company for 9 figures. But to my family, a hypothetical entry-level position at Apple would represent success. I'm actually quite satisfied with my current work, I said simply. Dad overheard and joined the conversation with his usual paternal concern. Sarah, there's no shame in accepting help to get your foot in the door somewhere respectable. We all want to see you succeed in something real. Somewhere respectable. Something real. The irony was almost painful. From across the table, Amanda's stare intensified. Recognition was dawning in her eyes like sunrise breaking over Lake Michigan. Sarah, she said during a lull in conversation, her voice cutting through the ambient noise of clinking glasses and polite laughter. Forgive me, but is your last name Johnson? The table quieted. Michael looked confused. Of course it is. She's my sister. Amanda set down her fork with deliberate precision. You're Sarah Johnson from TechVision AI. And there it was. The moment I'd both dreaded and anticipated for years. Yes, I said simply, meeting her gaze steadily. Wait, Amanda continued, her professional demeanor cracking slightly. You're the Sarah Johnson, the founder and CEO of TechVision AI, the company my firm just acquired for $300 million. Michael looked completely bewildered. Amanda, I think you're confusing my sister with someone else. Sarah works in tech support, or something. Amanda turned to stare at him in disbelief. Michael, I've been negotiating this acquisition for 3 months. Your sister just became one of the most successful AI entrepreneurs in the country. She looked back at me, realization dawning. I can't believe I didn't connect it. You always talked about your sister Sarah, but Johnson is such a common name. And the ghost genius was this mysterious figure. We barely saw you in person during negotiations. The ghost genius, Dad repeated weakly. That's what the industry calls her, Amanda explained, her voice filled with professional admiration. The brilliant CEO who revolutionized building management while maintaining complete privacy. Now I understand why. The silence that followed was absolute. Dad froze with his wine glass halfway to his lips. Mom's hand fluttered to her pearl necklace. Michael sat there, processing the fact that every piece of career advice he'd ever given me had been directed at the CEO of a 9-figure company. And that's when 6 years of suppressed rage finally erupted. Wait, so all those times I offered you advice about getting a real job? Michael's voice trailed off as the full impact hit him. I was talking to the CEO of a $300 million company. Is this true? Dad finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. Yes, I said, my voice steady, but something dangerous flickering in my eyes. Emma Rodriguez and I founded TechVision AI 6 years ago. We currently employ 127 people across 8 cities. We manage AI-powered building systems for over 400 commercial properties. But why wouldn't you tell us? Mom's bewilderment seemed genuine. That's when I finally snapped. Why wouldn't I tell you? I repeated, my voice rising slightly. You want to know why I didn't tell you? I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. The entire table fell silent. Because for 6 years, you've told me that my work was worthless. You called my AI programming silly computer games. You said I was embarrassing the family with my little tech hobby. You told me real professionals don't play with computers all day. My voice grew stronger with each word. 6 years of fury finally breaking free. You had my college acceptance letters. You stole my scholarships to MIT and Stanford. You cut off my financial support to force me into pre-law, while Michael got unlimited funding for medical school. A $200,000 loan co-signed the same week you cut me off. You made me work 3 jobs just to afford community college. Dad's face went pale. Sarah, we were trying to protect you from. Protect me. I exploded, the words ripping from my throat with years of accumulated pain. You scheduled Michael's party on the day of my AI competition finals deliberately. You knew about my competition for months, had it marked on the family calendar, watched me prepare obsessively, but you guilt-tripped me for being selfish when I protested. I turned to Dad, my eyes blazing with a fury that had been building for 15 years. And you, Dad, you took my first-place trophy, the trophy I won competing alone because my family couldn't be bothered to show up, and you used it as an asterisk paperweight asterisk. You told visitors it was just some computer thing Sarah did in high school. The table was dead silent. Amanda looked mortified. Michael seemed to be shrinking into his chair. You spread rumors in your social circles that I was addicted to technology and needed an intervention. You organized family meetings to discuss my computer obsession. You told people I was mentally struggling and couldn't hold down a real job. Mom started to speak, but I cut her off with a gesture so sharp it could have cut glass. I'm not finished. Last week, you scheduled job interviews for me without my knowledge. Help desk positions. While I was managing a portfolio worth hundreds of millions of dollars, you were trying to get me entry-level jobs because you thought I needed real work. I pulled out my phone and showed them a screenshot of our latest quarterly report. The numbers glowing on the screen like accusations. This computer hobby you've been so ashamed of. It generates $47 million in annual revenue. It employs 127 people. It manages smart building systems for over 800,000 workers daily. Universities study our AI algorithms. Microsoft wants to partner with us. Amazon is licensing our technology. The room was so quiet you could hear the city humming 4 to 4 stories below. But here's the most twisted part, I continued, my voice dripping with bitter satisfaction. You were planning to use my tech connections to help Michael's medical practice. Completely unaware that I **the tech industry leader you've been dismissing for years. I looked directly at Dad, my gaze unwavering. You wanted to leverage my industry relationships for Michael's benefit while simultaneously telling your golf buddies that I was playing around with computers until I found a real career. The hypocrisy was so complete, so breathtaking, that I almost laughed. They'd spent years trying to destroy my confidence while planning to exploit the very expertise they'd mocked. Michael finally spoke, his voice barely audible. Sarah, I had no idea. Of course you didn't, I snapped, whirling to face him. Because you never bothered to ask. None of you did. For 6 years, you assumed I was failing because my success didn't look like yours. I sat back down, my hands trembling slightly from adrenaline, but my voice remained steady and controlled. Amanda, would you mind explaining to my family exactly what we've built? Amanda, who'd been watching this family drama unfold with the fascination of someone witnessing a controlled demolition, finally spoke up. Your platform revolutionized building management efficiency by 73% across our test portfolio, she said, her voice filled with professional awe. The AI integration capabilities are light years ahead of anything else in the market. You've essentially created the neural system for smart cities. It's why we were willing to pay such a premium. $300 million. Dad repeated the number like a prayer. Amanda nodded, still processing the surreal nature of the situation. The acquisition closed this morning. Your sister just engineered one of the largest AI exits in Chicago history. But Sarah works in IT support, Michael said weakly, as if saying it aloud might make it true. Your sister, Amanda replied, is the CEO who just revolutionized how 800,000 office workers interact with their buildings daily. High AI integration platform is being studied by universities as the future of urban technology. The silence stretched for what felt like hours. I could see them all trying to reconcile the daughter and sister they thought they knew with the reality sitting before them. Finally, Mom spoke, her voice small and broken. We never meant to hurt you. But you did hurt me, I replied. My anger was finally spent, replaced by a deep exhaustion. Every time you dismissed my work. Every time you suggested I get a real job. Every time you acted ashamed of what I built. It hurt. Why didn't you trust us to support you? Dad asked, and for the first time all evening, he sounded genuinely hurt rather than defensive. Because I trusted your love, but I didn't trust your respect, I said quietly. I needed to know I could succeed without your approval before I could risk asking for it. Michael winced visibly. All those times I offered you career advice about corporate training programs and getting your foot in the door somewhere. I was talking to someone who is already running a company worth more than I'll make in my entire medical career. You weren't trying to be condescending, I said gently. You were trying to help based on the information you had. I'm the one who kept you in the dark. But we should have seen, Mom said, tears in her eyes. We should have asked what you wanted instead of assuming we knew what was best. I looked around the table at my family and really looked at them. They seemed smaller somehow, diminished by the revelation that their assumptions had been so completely wrong. I forgive you, I said finally, but things have to change. If we're going to have a relationship going forward, it has to be based on who I actually am, not who you want me to be. Dad nodded slowly. We'd like that very much. The rest of the dinner passed in a subdued blur. Relatives who'd pitted me an hour before suddenly wanted investment advice. Mom mentioned that she'd always known I had a special talent with computers. Dad claimed he'd told golf partners about his daughter, the tech entrepreneur, for years. Through it all, I maintained my composure. The validation I'd once craved now felt hollow against the backdrop of their sudden, opportunistic pride. As the evening wound down, Amanda pulled me aside. I owe you an apology, she said. If I'd known who you were during the negotiations. You treated me with respect, I interrupted. You judged my work on its merits, not on your preconceptions about who I should be. There's nothing to apologize for. She smiled. Michael is lucky to have you as a sister. He just doesn't know it yet. He's learning, I said. We all are. Walking to my car through the Chicago night, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. A weight I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. The secret that had defined my adult life was finally in the open. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. How did it go? Are you okay? I typed back. It went exactly like we thought it would. And yes, I'm more than okay. I'm finally free. 6 months later, I stood in my new office at Urban Dynamics Incorporated, looking out over the Chicago River. 42 floors below, the entire grid of smart buildings ran on TechVision's integrated AI platform. What had started as a dream sketched on napkins had become the backbone of urban intelligence across 3 time zones. The Singapore expansion is ahead of schedule, Emma said, settling into the chair across from my desk. As Chief Technology Officer for Urban Dynamics Smart Cities Division, she'd overseen our platform's international rollout with characteristic precision. They want to implement our system across 12 buildings in their financial district by Q2. And the London partnership? Signed this morning. 17 properties in Canary Wharf, full AI integration. The mayor's office is even interested in citywide implementation. I smiled, spinning my chair to face the windows. TechVision AI wasn't just a Chicago success story anymore. We were reshaping how humans interacted with urban environments on a global scale. Buildings across 4 continents now used our technology to create seamless, intelligent experiences for over 800,000 people daily. My relationship with my family had found its own equilibrium. The initial shock had given way to a more complex process of rebuilding relationships on new terms. It hadn't been smooth. There had been awkward conversations, hurt feelings, and moments when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves. But it had been real. My parents had struggled initially with what my success meant for their worldview. Dad had gone through what I could only describe as an identity crisis, questioning his assumptions about stable career paths and traditional achievement. Mom had oscillated between defensive pride and genuine attempts to understand the technology industry. The breakthrough had come during a family dinner 3 months after the revelation. Michael had invited everyone to his apartment to celebrate his residency match. For the first time in years, the conversation hadn't centered around achievements and comparisons. I've been thinking about what you said, Dad had told me over dessert, about us never really asking what you wanted. I realize I spent so much time trying to protect you from failure that I never learned to recognize your success. It wasn't a complete apology, but it was a start. Mom's transformation had been more gradual. She'd started taking online courses in business technology, reading industry publications, and asking genuine questions about my work. Last week, she'd sent me an article about AI innovations with a note. This reminded me of what you and Emma built. I'm starting to understand why it matters. Michael's adjustment had been the most dramatic. Discovering that his struggling sister was actually a tech executive had forced him to confront his own assumptions about success and failure. I keep thinking about all the times I offered you career advice, he'd said during one particularly raw conversation. How condescending I must have sounded. You weren't trying to be condescending, I'd replied. You were trying to help based on the information you had. I'm the one who kept you in the dark. But why did you not trust us? That question had taken me weeks to answer honestly. I trusted your love, but I didn't trust your respect. I needed to know I could succeed without your approval before I could risk asking for it. The most unexpected development had been my emergence as a mentor in the tech community. Once a month, I hosted workshops for young women in STEM fields, sharing not just technical knowledge, but the emotional resilience needed to pursue unconventional paths. My parents think programming is just a hobby, a 15-year-old named Maya had told me during our last session, echoing my own teenage experience. They want me to focus on pre-med courses. What do you want to build? I asked, the same question I wish someone had asked me at her age. Apps that help people with disabilities navigate public spaces more easily, she replied without hesitation. My little brother has autism. I see how hard it is for him to feel comfortable in crowded places. Then build them, I said, offering her the same encouragement I'd had to give myself. Find people who believe in your vision, even if they're not your family, and keep the door open for your parents to understand later. These sessions reminded me why I'd fought so hard to build TechVision AI in the first place. Technology wasn't about the money or the recognition. It was about creating solutions that made people's lives better. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Dinner with family, 7 p.m. These monthly gatherings had become a treasured tradition, something I would have found unimaginable a year ago. Heading out early? Emma asked, noticing me packing my laptop. Family dinner. Michael's cooking, which means Amanda's probably bringing backup takeout. How are things with them now? She asked. I considered the question. Different, better, real, for the first time in years. That evening, I drove to Michael and Amanda's apartment in Lincoln Park. It was a beautiful space they'd chosen together, reflecting both their personalities. The walls featured medical awards alongside technology industry recognition, a visual representation of how our family had learned to expand its definition of achievement. Sarah. Michael opened the door, flower in his hair and an apron reading, Trust me, I'm a doctor. I only set off the smoke alarm once tonight. Progress. I laughed, embracing him. Amanda appeared from the kitchen, carrying a bottle of wine and looking amused. I may have ordered pizza as backup. Your brother's ambitious, but not always realistic about his culinary skills. Smart woman, I said. That's why you're perfect for him. Mom and Dad arrived shortly after, both looking more relaxed than they had in months. Dad had been reading business magazines to better understand my industry. Mom had started following tech news and occasionally sent me articles she found interesting. How was the board meeting today? Dad asked as we settled around their dining table. 6 months ago, he wouldn't have known I attended board meetings. Now he asked specific questions about quarterly projections and market expansion. Productive. We approved the funding for our mental health initiative. AI building systems that can detect stress patterns and adjust environmental factors to improve well-being. That sounds like it could help a lot of people, Mom said, and I could tell she genuinely meant it. Over dinner, Michael's surprisingly edible chicken parmesan, supplemented by Amanda's backup pizza. The conversation flowed naturally. We talked about my work, Michael's medical cases, and family news. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to downplay my achievements or navigate around uncomfortable topics. I have an announcement, I said, as we finished dessert. Forbes wants to feature me on their cover. The Ghost Genius Steps into the Light is the proposed headline. That's incredible, Amanda said, raising her wine glass. A cover story. Our daughter on the cover of Forbes. Mom said wonderingly, "Robert, do you realize what this means?" "It means we raised an extraordinary woman," Dad replied, looking directly at me. "It just took us too long to recognize it." The moment could have felt hollow, validation coming only after undeniable proof of success. But it didn't. It felt like healing, like the beginning of relationships built on who we actually were, rather than who we pretended to be. "There's something else," I continued. "I'm starting a foundation, Hidden Potential. It'll provide mentorship and funding for young women pursuing unconventional paths in STEM fields. Like what you wish you'd had?" Michael asked, understanding immediately. "Exactly. Nobody should have to build their dreams in complete silence." "Count us in," Amanda said immediately. "Whatever you need. Board positions, funding, connections. We'd like to help, too," Mom added. "I may not understand all the technical aspects, but I understand the importance of supporting young women's ambitions." As the evening wound down, I found myself standing on their balcony with Michael, looking out over the city lights. So many of those buildings now use tech vision technology, creating seamless experiences for thousands of people every day. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "A real one. For years of treating you like someone who needed fixing instead of someone who was building something incredible." "You don't owe me anything," I replied. We were both trying to navigate a family that had very specific ideas about success. You happened to fit those ideas, and I didn't. But I should have seen you, really seen you. You see me now. That's what matters. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the city pulse with life below us. Somewhere in that urban sprawl, a teenager was probably teaching herself to code in her bedroom, dreaming of building something that would change the world. I hoped she had people who believed in her vision. If not, I hoped she'd find them, or find a way to one of our hidden potential workshops. "You know what's funny?" Michael said eventually. "What?" "I spent my whole life trying to make Mom and Dad proud by following their path. You made them proud by creating your own." I smiled. "Different kinds of courage, I guess." "Yeah, but yours was harder." "Maybe it was, but it had also been mine. Completely, authentically mine. And that made all the difference." Later that night, back in my apartment, I stood on my balcony overlooking Lake Michigan. The water reflected the city lights like scattered diamonds, each one representing someone whose life had been touched by the technology we'd created. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Saw the Forbes announcement on social media. Ready to be famous. I typed back, ready to be seen. Tomorrow I'd wake up as Sarah Johnson, CEO of Urban Dynamics Smart Cities Division, Forbes cover story, founder of Hidden Potential. But tonight, I was simply someone who'd learned that the best validation comes from within, and that sometimes, if you're patient and persistent enough, the people you love most will learn to see you clearly, too. The city stretched out below, full of smart buildings that would make tomorrow a little easier for hundreds of thousands of people. Not bad for a girl who'd once been told that computers were just a hobby. Success, I'd learned, wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving yourself right. And sometimes, if you build something undeniable enough, the world, including your family, will have no choice but to see you for who you really are. So, what do you think about Sarah's story? If you were in her position, would you keep building your dreams in silence until they were too big to ignore, or would you demand recognition from the start, even if it meant facing dismissal? Have you ever felt invisible to a family that just didn't get what you do? Tell me what you think. I really want to know.